Episode 73. This week we cover the Savage Curtain. The Savage Curtain this week. An Enterprise flying along in space, and all of a sudden they're at this planet that had no life forms, no atmosphere that could sustain life. And all of a sudden Abraham Lincoln pops up in the middle of space. And they're like, Abraham Lincoln, what are you doing in the middle of space, and how can you breathe? And he's like, I don't know, but I can. It's like, beam me aboard and we'll discuss it. And he's like, don't worry, you can trust me, I'm Honest Dave. And Kirk's like, well, in that case, okay. So Kirk calls for full dress uniforms and presidential honors. Well, they go down to the transporter room. Scotty's having a fit. He's having an absolute fit, wearing his kilt and his dress uniform. He can't believe Kirk's going along with him. Kirk's like, well, unless we know for sure he's not President Lincoln, we'll just presume Abraham Lincoln, who died hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and thousands of light years away, just happened to be floating in space and could breathe and talk in space, which is a vacuum. It could happen. So they beam him aboard, and Lincoln recognized the security guard. He's like, well, I'm afraid I'm no threat at my age. And they're like, well, in that case, we'll just leave. And they do. And McCoy's taking his scans. And he's like, yeah, he's human. And Abraham Lincoln like, see, I told you. Kirk decides to take Abraham Lincoln on a tour of the ship. He tells McCoy and Scotty to wait in the conference room. He'll be right there. Then, over an hour later, he's still giving Lincoln a tour. Uhura comes to let Kirk know, hey, your senior officers are still waiting in the conference room. And then Abraham Lincoln sees her and says things not appropriate to the 24th century. And she's like, well, that doesn't bother me. We don't be bothered by words in the 24th century. So clearly it was way past 2020. And so Kirk's like, well, she'll finish her tour, I'll go talk to my senior officers. He gets there, and he's like, we'll beam down with Abraham Lincoln to the planet because this little pocket of atmosphere that we can breathe in just happened to show up out of nowhere. It's probably perfectly fine. McCoy and Scotty want to relieve Kirk of duty for being mentally unfit to command, but Kirk's like, no, it's fine. We'll beam down with Abraham Lincoln, who just happened to be floating in space, to this little pocket of atmosphere that didn't exist a few minutes ago, and hope for the best. And they're like, you're crazy, and Spock's like, I guess I'll go too. Well, they go with Abraham Lincoln. They got phasers and tricorders on them. They go to beam down. Somehow Abraham Lincoln was half out of the transporter pad, still beamed down, but the phasers didn't go with them. Phasers dropped to the pads. McCoy and Scotty can't believe it. Kirk, Spock, and Lincoln get to the planet. Abraham Lincoln's thinking things seem familiar to him. He doesn't know why. He doesn't know how to explain it. They realize that the phasers didn't get beamed down with them. They can't communicate with the ship. And all of a sudden, Sirach shows up, the father of Vulcan logic. Kirk's like, wow, it's Sirach. And Sirach's like, hey, you showed emotion there. And Spock's like, oops. It's like, sorry, image of Sirach that I don't believe in. He's like, that's fine, Spock. We'll not talk to that again. Spock doesn't believe it's Sirach, but he can't explain it any other way, so he just goes with it. And then this rock monster forms, and it tells Kirk that it wants to see good versus evil battle because it doesn't understand the concept of good versus evil, so it's curious to see what happens when good fights evil to the death. And Kirk, Spock, Lincoln, and Sirach are good, and then he's got a gang of evil there. There's like this general from World War III, there's Genghis Khan, there's some other alien, and then there's Kahless, the Unforgettable from Klingon mythology. Some of the most evil in the universe, in history apparently. So, the good guys don't want to fight the bad guys. The bad guys start preparing for battle. The good guy's like, we don't want to fight them. We'll run and hide. And they're like, well, the rock monster won't let us. Maybe we have to fight. Sirach refuses to fight. He's like, I'll go and talk to him, and maybe that'll solve it. And they're like, but what if they kill you? And he's like, why would they do that? It'd be illogical. So he wanders off. The rest of them start making spears and gathering rocks to throw as weapons. And apparently they're only like 50 feet apart. The whole time they're like 50 feet apart. They're like, huh, Sirach sure has been gone a long time for it only being 50 feet apart. Then they start hearing screaming. Spock's like, that's not Sirach, because Vulcans don't scream out like that. And they're like, what if it is? He's like, well, it's not, but let's just proceed as if it is. And Abraham Lincoln's like, I used to be like really cunning in my day. I'll sneak around the back, grab Sirach, and sneak back while you start throwing spears and rocks. And you're like, you think that'll work? He's like, what's the worst that could happen? Well, Lincoln sneaks around the backside, and he gets to Sirach. Sirach's already dead. He's just sitting there dead. Lincoln's like, oops. And then Kalis, who'd been mimicking Sirach, comes up, and the World War III guy's like, can you do a little bit of Lincoln? He's like, sure. And he mimics Lincoln's voice. Lincoln walks across to warn Kirk and Spock, and he's like, it's a trap, don't listen to him. And he falls face forward with a spear in his back. And you're like, oops. Well, they keep battling. Kirk and Spock refuse to kill off the evil doers. They have their chance, but it's like, no, we won't kill him. The rock monster is like, well, this must be how good precedes and triumphs over evil. I don't really get it, but I'll let you go back to your ship, apparently. So Kirk and Spock go back to the ship. The battle is over. The rock monster takes the images away. Atmosphere goes back to being toxic like it was when they got there. And that was pretty much it. Kirk felt a little bad because Lincoln got killed for the second time. Right in the back, from behind. Some interesting notes in this one. First time a U.S. president was just floating in space on a Star Trek episode. Also, the first time we see Sirach, who became like a central figure through all the Star Trek universe. Same with Kalis, who was a much bigger part of the entire Star Trek universe. He was seen in a few of the different series and talked about in pretty much all of them. Also, the last episode of Uhura. Uhura was not in the last couple of episodes of the series, so this was her last episode. The last episode, of course, where all the central 7 cast members were all on the same episode. Well, pretty much 73.